Okay, let's cut through the noise. The market is a sea of red, and everyone's panicking. We're not here for that. We're here for a ruthless, data-driven health check on the PLAZM Protocol. No feelings, no speculation. We're looking at the engine, not the shiny paint job. Yeah, that's the number that started it all, a 30% drop. For most people, that's a five-alarm fire. You see the herd running for the exits, but not us. We're the ones running into the fire to see what's actually burning. So, what was this really? Was it the system breaking apart at the seams? Or was it a brutal but ultimately successful stress test? Did the protocol fail, or did it just show everyone how tough it really is? Because, the on-chain data, it tells a very, very different story. All right, first things first. Let's head straight to the scene of the crime. We're looking at the numbers from day 57, right when the hammer dropped. So, what does the initial data tell us? This is where it starts to get weird. The price? Yeah, it got absolutely hammered, no question. But then you look at the vault, the protocol's own treasury. It didn't go down, it went up by nearly 30,000 bucks. The treasury literally got richer while the token price got poorer. Now, that is not supposed to happen, and that's our first big clue that this was no ordinary crash. Okay, so if the treasury is actually growing, what on earth pushed the price down so hard? Well, the obvious culprit, the one everyone was screaming about, was inflation from daily rewards. The fear was that a tidal wave of new tokens was about to flood the market. But let's look at the actual data, not just the fear. And here it is. Fear versus reality. Plain and simple. On the left, you've got the boogeyman, $186,000 in potential daily rewards. That's the number that had people spooked. But that's not what matters. What matters is on the right. The actual amount of tokens that were unlocked and could be sold. Just $1,600. That's not a tidal wave. That's barely a ripple. It's a rounding error. And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? That giant skyscraper on the left, that's the panic. That tiny little speck on the right, that's the reality. Over 99% of those daily rewards were still locked down. The inflation monster everyone was so scared of, well, it was a ghost. There was no real sell pressure. So, if inflation wasn't the culprit, then who was selling? Did all the so-called diamond hands suddenly turn to paper? Did everyone just dump their tokens and run for the hills? Let's follow the money and see what really happened. So here's the before picture, before the chaos. A healthy 55% of tokens are staked and locked up. 27% are providing liquidity. And look at that, only a tiny 5% are actually liquid, free to be sold on the market. This thing was built like a fortress. Now here's the aftershock, and this is the most critical part. That liquid float, the amount of tokens available to be sold, it didn't change. It's still 5%, so there was no mass panic sell. But look closer. The staked percentage went down by 1%, and the liquidity pool went up by 1%. That is no accident. And there you have it. The smart money didn't run away. They just repositioned. They saw all this wild price action not as a threat, but as an opportunity. So they moved funds from staking over to the liquidity pools so they could scoop up all the trading fees. This wasn't panic. It was a calculated, strategic play. Okay, so this is where the entire story gets flipped on its head. We're about to show you how this terrifying price crash, this event that shook the market, actually made the protocol's defenses way, way stronger. It sounds totally backwards, I know, but it's true. So to get this next part, you have to understand the Grover model. Think of it as the protocol's defense system, its war machine. When the price takes a hit, it automatically activates. It uses its treasury funds to go out and buy its own tokens off the market, and then it burns them, destroys them. They're gone forever. This reduces the total supply and helps support the price. So here's the brilliant part. At $3 a token, the Treasury's defense fund can buy a certain amount of tokens to burn. But at $1.94, that exact same pile of cash now buys almost twice as many tokens. The lower the price goes, the more supply the protocol can remove from the market. The buy and burn engine just got a massive efficiency boost. It's like its ammo suddenly got way more powerful. So just how much firepower did the protocol have on hand? Well, its defense fund was sitting on over $450,000. And the total sell pressure it was up against? That measly $1,600 we talked about? You do the math. The protocol could have bought back every single token released that day, 200 times over. It wasn't a fair fight. It would have been a massacre.
We've looked at the sell pressure, we've seen what the smart money did, we've analyzed the defense system. I think it's time we deliver a verdict.
So, after all that, was this a moment of weakness, or was it an incredible show of strength? The data doesn't lie. Our verdict is a clear and simple green. The system is healthy. The protocol didn't just survive a 30% shock to the system, it actually thrived. There was no bank run, the Treasury got stronger, and the crash made its own defenses more powerful. This was a textbook example of an anti-fragile system at work. So let's just recap the big points here. First, that price drop was a stress test, and the protocol passed with flying colors. Second, the sell pressure everyone was worried about was basically a myth. Third, smart money wasn't selling, they were repositioning to profit from the volatility. And finally, the defense engine is now stronger and more efficient because of the low price. So, we'll leave you with this question to think about. What if we're all looking at crises the wrong way? What if a crisis isn't a bug, but a feature? What if a system actually needs to be tested by fire to prove how strong it is? Because for the PLAZM protocol, it sure looks like this trial by fire was exactly what it needed.